The story begins in New York, where a happy family lives. Rachel Doyle, her husband Anthony, and their twin sons, Elliot and Nathan. The film is set around the 1980s. Everything changes after a tragic car accident. The crash turns their world upside down. Nathan loses his life, and the family falls into deep grief. Elliot survives, but nothing feels the same anymore. To escape their pain, they decide to sell their New York home for a low price and move to a quiet village in Finland. Anthony is originally from Finland, and his family owned a house there, so they hope it will be a fresh start. The place seems peaceful and beautiful, and it looks like the family might finally heal. Rachel also appears to be recovering slowly. After they arrive, Elliot begins exploring the area, but when Rachel notices he wandered off, she panics. After losing one child, she has become extremely protective. She scolds Elliot gently, unable to control her fear. Over the next few days, their belongings arrive, and the family starts settling in. Rachel and Elliot grow even closer. But Rachel finds some old photos in the house that upset her. Later, she checks an upstairs room that Elliot likes. He wants it for himself, and Rachel agrees, hoping it will help him feel at home. While Rachel is talking to Elliot, she notices from the window that someone came to meet Anthony. When she goes downstairs, the visitors are already gone. Anthony says they left early because the village is far, but they invited the family to a welcome party. That night, as Rachel puts Elliot to bed, he asks if she loves him as much as she loved Nathan. She assures him she does. He also asks why they left Nathan, and Rachel can't explain clearly. She only says Nathan is still with them in spirit. Elliot holds one of Nathan's toys, and she doesn't stop him. Downstairs, Rachel tells Anthony about Elliot's strange questions, but Anthony just wants them to stay peaceful here. Later, Rachel has disturbing dreams and wakes up scared. Anthony comforts her as she worries something might happen to Elliot too. He reassures her gently. The next day, they bury Nathan's belongings near the house to help them move on. Elliot returns the toy as well. Still, Rachel sets up another bed in Elliot's room and places Nathan's photo there, keeping his memory close. Anthony then takes them to a lake. On a stone, he shows them an ancient handprint that, according to legend, can make wishes come true. Elliot places his hand on it and makes a quiet wish while his parents watch. Throughout all this, Anthony appears distant and troubled, something the film will explain later. The next day, the family is at home. Anthony, a writer, is working while Rachel is drying clothes. She suddenly hears voices from Elliot's room as if he's talking to someone. When she checks, no one is there. But it feels like Elliot has an invisible friend. When she asks who he was talking to, Elliot refuses to answer and closes the door, which makes her uneasy. Later, they attend the welcome party arranged by the villagers. Hardly anyone talks to Rachel except a British woman, Helen, who has lived there for many years. Helen tells her many villagers understand English but avoid speaking it. Rachel also realizes the villagers don't like Helen much. Helen then suggests they step outside to talk privately. She tells Rachel she isn't crazy like others say and feels sorry for her family. She also says she once saw in a dream that Rachel's son made a wish, and that wish would come true. These strange comments confuse Rachel. Just then, Anthony and the village doctor arrive looking for her and take her back inside. Since Rachel and Anthony weren't married in Finland, the villagers want them to follow a local ritual. Both must sit together on a swing. Rachel doesn't like it, but agrees for Anthony. While swinging, she panics, feeling Elliot might wander off or disappear. She breaks down crying as Anthony comforts her, and villagers gather around. Later at home, Anthony apologizes for not telling her about the ritual. Rachel then asks if he has noticed changes in Elliot's behavior, because she feels he has changed since they came here. Anthony tells her she's overthinking, and that Elliot is simply going through big changes. When Rachel mentions Helen's words, he says not to take her seriously, since the town considers Helen a crackpot. He also advises her to remove Nathan's bed and belongings from Elliot's room. Rachel instead suggests he spend more time with Elliot. The next day, Rachel and Elliot play while Anthony tries to write but becomes emotional. He breaks down alone, looking at Nathan's photos and missing him deeply. Later in the kitchen, Rachel sees Elliot drawing disturbing images. Worried, she tells him not to make such drawings again. At night, Elliot leaves his own bed and sleeps in Nathan's bed. Rachel then experiences another strange nightmare. She wakes up, drinks milk that tastes wrong, and spits it out. She thinks she sees Elliot outside, rushes out in panic, but finds no one. Only a vision of Nathan screaming silently. It's just another dream. When she wakes, she finds Elliot again in Nathan's bed and moves him back. But when she calls him Elliot, he replies, "I'm not Elliot. I'm Nathan." Elliot's gone. The next day, Rachel, terrified, tells Anthony. She believes this change began after they came here, maybe after the welcome party, but Anthony still refuses to believe anything is wrong. Later, Anthony hears Rachel shouting at Elliot, but still doesn't react. He's heartbroken and withdrawn. At Rachel's request, they take Elliot to the town doctor. The doctor insists Elliot is fine and says the real issue is Rachel's overwhelming emotions after their tragedy and the move. Rachel doesn't trust him, or anyone in this village, so she leaves angrily. Since arriving, she has felt the villagers staring at her strangely. Feeling helpless, she goes to Helen's house to understand the village and why Elliot has changed. Helen explains she is religious, and this village follows ancient pagan traditions. That's what brought her and her husband here. There's no church, and whenever someone tries to build one, it gets burned down. When Rachel asks how this connects to Elliot, Helen says everything here is linked. She points out how the village is full of circular shapes. The fields, farms, paths, even the lake. She shows Rachel old photos and maps where all these circles lead toward the sacrificial rock Rachel already visited. Rachel is confused, but Helen's hints suggest the land may be tied to a dark force, and the circle symbol belongs to it. Helen then explains her point clearly. When Elliot placed his hand on the rock and made a wish, it likely came true. And as a child, he probably wished for Nathan to return. Helen believes the dark force, the devil, now wants Rachel's son. Rachel refuses to believe her and tries to leave, but Helen warns that Rachel has already seen the signs. Strange dreams and visions. Ignoring them will put everyone in danger. Still, Rachel walks away. She goes home late and lies to Anthony, saying she was lost. That night, Helen wakes up feeling a presence in her house, terrified, though the film doesn't show what happened. The next day, Helen visits Rachel again. She insists her nightmare was a warning and explains what happened to her husband, hinting that an evil force took over him and destroyed him. She tells Rachel not to ignore the darkness in this land. Rachel still doubts her, but feels unsettled. Helen shows a photo of her husband, and his face appears blurred. When Rachel asks what the evil wants from Elliot, Helen says, "Everything." These words disturb Rachel deeply. She starts suspecting Elliot and takes photos of him. Elliot becomes irritated by it. Rachel takes the photos to get them developed, expecting something strange. That night, Elliot argues with her, saying, "Dad doesn't love me. He only loved Nathan." Rachel tries to calm him, but notices dirt on his hands. She realizes he dug up Nathan's toy she had buried. Scared and angry, she grabs the toy and burns it. Later, Rachel and Anthony talk about Nathan and become emotional. Rachel admits she sometimes feels this is their punishment, and that a small part of her felt relieved when Nathan passed away. Now she feels like a terrible mother. Anthony hugs and comforts her. At the same time, Helen is shown having another nightmare. That night, Rachel wakes up to Elliot calling her. He tells her to follow him because Nathan wants to talk to her. Scared, Rachel follows. Elliot lights a candle in front of a mirror and repeats Nathan's name. The candle reacts strangely. Elliot tells her Nathan is there and wants to see her. Crying, Rachel asks if Nathan can see her, and Elliot tells her to lift the mirror. Meanwhile, Helen is seen whispering, "Don't do it," as if connected to what's happening. When Rachel lifts the mirror, she sees 2 hands. Panicking, she drops it, and it breaks. Suddenly, the lights turn on, and Anthony appears with several villagers. Anthony says something disturbing, that they only needed Elliot so they could bring Nathan back. Elliot vanishes, and Rachel cries helplessly. The movie doesn't show everything clearly, but it feels like the entire village is involved. The next day, Rachel acts strangely normal, and Elliot is with them. They go into town, and Rachel picks up the photos she took, only to discover Elliot is not visible in any picture. Horrified, she goes to find Helen to tell her what she saw. Rachel tells Helen she now believes her. Helen replies that this means Rachel's son is already with the dark force, and there's nothing she can do except kneel before its power. Rachel asks what must be done, and Helen says, "Take me to your son." As they leave, Anthony secretly watches them. On the way, Helen says they must reach Father Vasily before sunrise. He's the only one who can help. Rachel explains her dream showed the demon has taken over Anthony, but Helen says possession isn't that fast. In her husband's case, the demon took years to attach. When Rachel mentions an exchange, Helen suddenly understands why everything is happening so quickly. The demon is returning in Nathan's form. Nathan had to die so the demon could use his flesh, and to fully enter this world, it needs both twins. After that, it will try to make Rachel its new mother. Rachel is terrified. When they reach home, Rachel quickly brings Helen to Elliot's room, but the moment Helen sees Elliot, she goes pale and tells Rachel, "You're the one who's sick." Helen panics and tries to leave, but Anthony suddenly arrives with several villagers. When Rachel asks what's happening, he tells her not to worry. They're there to help. Helen pulls out her gun, but the villagers overpower her and seize Rachel as well. The doctor injects Rachel, and we see Helen's head, confirming she's been killed. When Rachel wakes, she's dressed in white among several women by the lake. Elliot lies in a coffin while Anthony prepares a ritual. The entire village watches as Anthony sacrifices their son, leaving Rachel crying helplessly. Rachel is then forced to drink Elliot's blood. Within moments, she becomes pregnant, and the villagers mark her stomach, showing the demon will be reborn through her. Afterward, they throw her into the lake. The next day, Rachel wakes locked in her room, but escapes. She overhears Anthony and the doctor discussing a final decision. Following Elliot's voice, she finds him tied inside a box and runs away with him. Anthony spots her and chases her into the woods. While fleeing, Elliot suddenly disappears. Rachel stops in shock, and Anthony catches her. Rachel tries to escape and attacks Anthony with a stone. Anthony suddenly becomes calm and tells her to kill him. He's tired of everything. Rachel can't do it. She runs to Elliot and hugs him. Anthony then says the shocking truth. We never had twins. Elliot isn't real. That day, we lost our only son. This is the real twist. They never had twin boys. There was only one child, Nathan. Anthony admits he was drunk that day, but Rachel also left home angry and caused the accident herself. She always believed the crash happened because of Anthony, but the truth is, her own distracted driving caused it. Nathan died that day, and Rachel completely broke down. She couldn't accept the loss, so her mind created an alternate reality, one where she had two sons, Nathan and an imaginary twin, Elliot. In this world, Nathan dies, but Elliot survives. Elliot exists only in Rachel's mind. No one else can see him. That's why Helen panicked and said, "You're sick," because there was no child in the room. Anthony was aware of Rachel's condition. But when he saw how Elliot gave her a reason to keep living, he supported the illusion. However, in the city, people saw Rachel talking to herself and suspected mental illness. She even had to visit a mental hospital. So Anthony brought her to the village, where everyone already knew her condition and avoided questioning her, hoping she would feel safe and stable. Anthony hoped Rachel would eventually recover on her own, and the villagers were quietly supporting her. There was never any real demon or possession, but Rachel's mental state kept getting worse. She even started seeing Anthony as an enemy, while Elliot's imagined voice insisted, "He's lying. I'm right here." For a moment, she seemed to be returning to reality, and Anthony felt hopeful. But then she sees Elliot again, begging her to run, and she escapes once more. Rachel reaches a grain factory. Elliot asks if she believes he is real, and she replies, "You are my son." Anthony arrives and begs her to understand Elliot doesn't exist. She refuses. To break her illusion, Anthony pulls a lever, releasing a huge flow of grain onto the spot Rachel thinks he's standing. Terrified, Rachel shoves Anthony away. He falls and dies instantly. She frantically searches the grain pile for Elliot, but then the truth finally hits her. Anthony was right, and her delusions have now cost her not only her son, but also her husband. As for Helen, she was mentally unstable too. After her husband died in this village, her trauma convinced her the place was linked to dark forces. Meeting her only pushed Rachel's fragile mind deeper into danger. In the final scene, after Anthony's funeral, Rachel is shown preparing to leave the city. She sits in her car, looking strangely peaceful. Then, inside the car, she sees Anthony, Nathan, and Elliot sitting with her. Rachel smiles at them, showing that her madness has grown even stronger. She has now begun imagining her entire family alive and with her. This is where the film ends. Losing someone you love leaves a pain that never truly disappears. Just like Rachel, the person may no longer be there, but they continue to live in memory. The movie is deeply sad, especially for anyone who has experienced such loss.